Hello and welcome back to my channel. On this video, I'm going to be talking about all the books that I hope to read in the month of February. And I have a few different challenges that I'm doing throughout this year. One of them is to read 24 books every month in 2024. So you will see me outline 19 books on this video that I have pre-selected. Then I also do what is called an alphabet challenge to pick 5 books randomly from my Kindle that start with the letter of the alphabet. I will draw that letter live on this video and then pick those books live as well. I am also doing a box set challenge this year to read box sets of books that I already own, and so you'll hear me talk about that on this video as well. So let's dive into all of the books I am hoping to read in the month of February. So the first book that I have on my list is the second book in a duology. It is called The Way I Am Now. This is part of the Way I Used to Be duology by Amber Smith. And I had read the first book in this set maybe a couple of months ago, and I really loved it. And then the author, this is a book that the first book had been published several years ago, and then the author wrote an updated, kind of like sequel to that book. And the general plot line of the first book is that you have a girl in high school who is sexually assaulted in her first year of high school, and then it follows her throughout her remaining years of high school as she's kind of dealing with the trauma of that experience. And then in the second book, I think it follows her into kind of her college years. So I'm looking forward to seeing and catching up with these characters. I also added to my list for February a book called Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is one that I'm really looking forward to on audio because I've heard amazing things about it on audio. It is by Matt Dinniman, and this is a book that falls into the subgenre of what is called RPG Lit, or role player game literature. And again, I've heard just really fun things about it. I haven't read a ton of things in this genre. The only other thing I can think of that I've read is Ready Player One, which is another book that would fall into this subgenre. But it's basically about kind of like gaming and like video gaming, and it sounds really fun. So I'm gonna dive into that. I also picked up to put on my list What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. And this is the first book in a series called Secrets of the Nile. The second book is not out yet. But this is one that is a young adult, I think it might be a mystery. I'm not even sure what genre this falls into, probably a little bit of fantasy as well. And again, I've heard just really amazing things about it from folks. It's been kind of floating around social media. So I was able to get an ebook copy and also the audiobook from my library. So I'm gonna try to get through that this month as well. I am also going to pick up hopefully the next couple of books in the Karen Pirie series by Val McDermid. This was one of my challenges this year to read this entire series. I read the first book last month. The second book is called A Darker Domain. And then the third book in the series is called The Skeleton Road. And I have both of those available to me on audio. So I thought I would try to get through the next couple ones in the series. I believe right now there are 7 books total in this series. And it basically just follows a detective as she's solving different kinds of crimes. Many of the crimes involve some kind of cold case, which I really love. I also added to my list a book called The Spy Coast by Tess Gerritsen. This is an author that I've read many things before. She has a mystery series called Rizzoli and Isles that was made into a television adaptation. And this is the first book in a new series for her called The Martini Club that I believe is focused on kind of spy culture. And this is a new, I think, departure for her. And so when I saw that she had this book out, I immediately wanted to pick it up. So I have this on audio and ebook, and I'm looking forward to diving into that. The box set challenge that I have set for myself this month is to read all of the books in the Thunder Point series by Robin Carr. Now, I have read other books by Robin Carr. She is the author that writes the Virgin River series, which was also turned into a television adaptation. And this series has 9 books in it. And I will just briefly walk through the titles of these books. But this is something, it's a romance series. I don't know much about it other than that. I'm assuming that all of these books in the series are interconnected. But the first book in the series is called The Wanderer. The second book in the series is called The Newcomer. Then the third book in the series is called The Hero. The fourth book in Thunder Point series is called The Chance. Then the next book in the series, number 5, is called The Promise. The 6th book in the series is called The Homecoming. The 7th book in the series is called One Wish. The 8th book is called A New Hope. And then the final book in the Thunder Point series is called Wildest Dreams. So I'm going to try to get through all of those. I have them all on ebook copy, and I'll probably be able to get some of them on audio, but looking forward to diving into those. I am also going to try to pick up in the month of February a book called Drowning. This is by T.J. Newman. T.J. Newman had another book called Falling that was about kind of this airplane kind of hijack situation that was like super fast paced. I read it in like one sitting of just listening to it on audio, and I've heard this one is like equally fast paced, equally good. I think it's about a plane that crashes in the ocean and then it's like sinking, or in some kind of body of water, and then it's like sinking and people are trying to get out of it. But I've heard really good things about that too, so I'm excited to pick that up. I also added a couple of nonfiction books to my list in the month of February. One of them is called The Book of Do, A Manual for Living. And this is a book, I'm just checking the authors here because I think it's edited by a number of people. It's edited by Babette Buster, Andrew Painter, and Miranda West. And the Do series is, I've read a lot of other books in this series, which is called like the Do series. And it has things like topics around like how you build teams. It has topics around things like breathing and meditation. Like there's a bunch of different topics in this series that are kind of these smaller books. And then I think they combined a lot of the essays in these books into this larger book called The Book of Do, which I own a hard copy of. And so I'm looking forward to diving into that. One of my challenges this year was to read more hard copy books that I already own. So The Book of Do is one of them. The second one that I put on my list for this particular month is called The Outermost House, A Year of Life on the Great Beach of Cape Cod by Henry Beston. And this is a book, as far as I'm aware, I think it was written a little over 20 years ago in 2003. And it's a book about, I think, solitude and kind of living in this house on the beach. And I love solitude books. They're one of my favorite kind of subgenres. So I'm looking forward to picking that up in February as well. And then the last book that I added to my list is one that I have heard about just a ton. It's from a little under 10 years ago, 2016, called The Lake House by Kate Morton. This is kind of I think a mystery, but it has kind of these historical elements to it. And I recently got it on sale, and so I added it to my list. I have it on ebook, and I'm looking forward to diving into that as well. So those are the 19 books that I have pre-selected to read in the month of February. And now I am going to open up my Kindle so that I can do a random selection of 5 additional books that I'm going to read in the month as well. So let me go ahead and open up my library here, and I'm going to sort it alphabetically. And then let me go ahead and pick my random letter. And the letter I have chosen, there were 2 that I pulled out. Okay, the letter I've chosen is D. And let's take a look at the D books that I have on my list and what I can find to add to my list for the month of February. So what I always do is take a quick look so that I know what I'm looking at here and what are kind of the range of things that I might be able to read. All right, the first book that I'm going to choose to add to my list is a book called Deep Storm. This is by Lincoln Child, who is an author that's kind of a pairing of 2 different people who write together. And this is the first book, it looks like, in their Jeremy Logan series, which I have not read anything about. And it says, let me give a quick synopsis here. On an oil platform in the middle of the North Atlantic, a terrifying series of illnesses is spreading through the crew. When expert naval doctor Peter Crane is flown in, he finds his real destination is not the platform itself, but Deep Storm, a top-secret aquatic science facility 2 miles below on the ocean floor. And as Crane soon learns, the covert operation he finds there is concealing something far more sinister than a medical mystery and much more deadly. So that one sounds interesting. I am going to go ahead and add that to my list. And let's see here. The next book I'm going to add to my list is a book called Defend the Dawn. This is the second book in the Defy the Night series, and I read Defy the Night, I think, last year. There are 3 books in this series. It's a trilogy, and I'm looking forward to kind of going back and kind of finishing up this series. So this is basically like the basic premise of the first book is that there's a kingdom where there's kind of this illness that's happening throughout the kingdom, and there's a female main character who is like collecting the ingredients that allows people to be healed from this illness. But those ingredients are kind of restricted. It's kind of like this magic thing that's restricted by like the king and the royalty in that kingdom. And so she has to kind of like do this secretly. And this is kind of how the book opens. And it basically is about kind of this political situation where she's having to kind of like navigate. Eventually, she gets kind of like hooked in with the royal family in this different way. And she has to kind of like navigate the politics of what she's trying to do on the side with what she begins to understand about the royal family. And I don't want to give the description of the second book because it gives away spoilers from the first book, but that's the general premise of it. So it is a fantasy novel, and I'm looking forward to diving into that too. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my list as well. And let's see here. I am also going to add a book to my list called Demolition Angel by Robert Crace. Robert Crace is a mystery novelist who has like a very long-running series, and this I believe is a standalone. And I'm really looking forward to reading it because I've enjoyed this author and other books I've read of him in the past. So the description for this book is that there is a woman who is struggling to pick up the pieces of her former life as LA's finest bomb squad technician. She was in a situation where there was a detonation that killed her partner, and then scarred her as well. And then there's a bomb call that basically she learns that there's somebody who is trying to design bombs to kill bomb technicians explicitly. And so she gets drawn back into this particular case. And I believe, yeah, this takes place in Los Angeles. All of the books of this author typically take place in Los Angeles. And so I'm looking forward to picking that up as well. So let me go ahead and add that into my list here. All right, and then a couple more. I am also going to pick up and add to my list a book called Devotion. This is a memoir by Dani Shapiro, who I really enjoy reading her books. I've not read this one before. And it says this is about a memoir that examines the fundamental questions that wake women in the middle of the night and grapples with the ways faith, prayer, and devotion affect everyday life. It says devotion is sure to appeal to those dealing with trials and tribulations of what Carl Jung calls the afternoon of life. So this is one of hers I haven't read yet, so I'm looking forward to adding that to my collection for February as well. And I need one more here. I am going to add a book that I have tried to read multiple times and I can never get through it, and I'm not sure why, because this is a book that's pretty popular. This is from a while ago. It's called The Dive from Clausen's Pier by Ann Packer. And I know if I read it as an Alphabet Challenge book, I'll actually read it. So this is a book that is basically about a girl who is in high school, if I remember. No, this is not right. Okay, at the age of 23, this girl has spent her entire life in Wisconsin with the same best friend, the same dependable, easygoing high school sweetheart. Now she's begun to find the life suffocating and is considering leaving it and her boyfriend behind, but he's paralyzed in a diving accident. And so it doesn't feel like the right timing, I think, for her to kind of leave. And so the book animates this dilemma and Carrie's startling response to it with the narrative assurance, exacting realism, and moral complexity we expect from the very best fiction. So I have always wanted to get through this book, and I am excited to add it to my February collection and see if I can get through it. All right, so I have my 5 additional books that I have added for the month of February, and that brings me to 24 books that I'm hoping to read in February, and some really good ones on that list. Hang around until the end of this month and I'll post another video letting you know what I was able to get done and read in the month of February. And until then, happy reading.